Today, on this fourth Sunday in Advent, we come to the final talk, as Sally was saying, in our sermon series entitled A Celebration of Prophetic Courage for Advent. And it seems appropriate, therefore, that our gospel reading should acknowledge John the Baptist, who truly exemplified a life of prophetic courage, speaking out fearlessly to challenge corruption, immorality, and injustice. As ever, the forces of darkness try to snuff out the light because it reveals the stark reality of their crimes. That's the tragic cost that John had to pay for being the witness to the light and in preparing a way for Jesus. So the fourth and final part of our Advent series of talks comes from a dark place. But it's one where we, as faithful followers of Jesus, are called to engage and shine a light and share love. Before we engage with this week's theme, we want to have a quick look at what we've heard so far about these four foundational principles that define Christian love in action. In week one, Sarah talked about the theme of welcoming the stranger. And then in week two, Tim explored the strand of feeding the hungry. In week three, Ian talked about clothing the naked. And so today we come to our fourth theme, which is visit the prisoner. Each one is a core activity that our justice-loving God requests and requires. They are all there deeply ingrained in our first reading from the prophet Isaiah. It's a passage that spoke originally and lovingly to the Israelite people in exile in Babylon, telling them that the time was ripe for their return. And these too are the words that I'm sure Jesus must have pored over as he planned his Galilean mission. They're certainly the words that he reads on that momentous day when he stands up in the synagogue in his own hometown of Nazareth. The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Today, this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing. And fulfilled, it certainly soon is, in a wonderful cascade of healing and heavenly blessing. As Jesus himself recounts, the blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have good news brought to them. In terms of liberation of the captives, this is Jesus reaching out with his gentle healing hands and releasing people from the shackles of disease and disability that have long kept them bound. In John 9, Jesus heals a man born blind from birth. By the pool of Bethesda in John 5, he heals a man who's been crippled for 38 years. In Luke 8, he heals a woman who has suffered from bleeding for 12 years. And in one of his most provocatively confrontational moments, he heals a woman in the synagogue on the Sabbath who is so bent over that she couldn't straighten herself up. She'd been like that, we are told, for 18 years. The synagogue leader is indignant. Jesus answers him, "You hypocrites! Doesn't each of you on the Sabbath untie your ox or donkey from the stall and lead it out to give it water? Then should not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has kept bound for 18 long years, be set free on the Sabbath day from what bound her?" This liberation ripples out throughout all of Jesus' ministry. People who had long been marginalized or excluded for whatever reason, gender, ethnicity, ill health, the list is long. Jesus shows that these are no obstacles in his sight, and he pours out his love without distinction. And so the door is open to the kingdom. People are welcomed in, comforted and supported, and truly offered the unconditional, unrestricted, and unlimited love of God. And that is a type of behavior that we can truly emulate, embrace, and adopt. As Jesus' ministry clearly demonstrates, people can feel imprisoned in many ways, and isolation and ill health can be a major factor. But I'd like to focus today on this week's theme of visiting the prisoner in its most literal sense. And that's for a variety of reasons. Partly because of my own engagement with the prison system, but also because I think this is an area where I feel that Christian ministry is urgently required. Yes, prisoners are folk who have committed crimes, some of which have caused profound and prolonged suffering to others, and they are now serving their sentence. But beyond that, they are human beings, just like us, desirous and deserving of hope and happiness and a better future life. And if we can help them on their way, then they are more likely to achieve that. One of the starkest problems in prison is overcrowding. In March of this year, there were fewer than 80,000 prison places within our system. The number of people in prisons stood at 88,000, and that is likely to increase. This is from the Howard League for Prison Reform. If someone is sent to prison, we should do all that we can to help them to turn their life around and move on from crime. But overcrowding coupled with chronic staff shortages makes it more difficult for prisons to engage everyone in activities that help rehabilitation, such as exercise, education, employment, and training. For many people, this means being locked in an overcrowded cell for 23 hours a day with nothing to do at a time when the physical state of prisons is getting worse. Education is key. An official report from the Ministry of Justice reveals that 57% of adults in prisons in the UK have a reading level below that of an average 11-year-old. A lack of basic skills such as reading and numeracy has been linked to higher rates of reoffending and the likelihood of an individual turning to crime. And all of this is of particular concern to me because for the last 7 or 8 years I have been what is called an official prison visitor, or OPV, at Grendon Prison, which, if you don't know it, is halfway between Wadston and Bicester. Official prison visitors are therefore prisoners who rarely, if ever, have visits from friends or family members. They therefore fulfill a vital function of opening a window on the world and bringing the outside in. Through regular visits, a relationship is built up where trust, empathy, and understanding are key. I've really valued my time as an official visitor at Grendon. It certainly enriched my life and taught me a lot. Rachel and I were both there on Thursday for the annual carol service, which is always a wonderfully rousing occasion. It was also an opportunity for me to meet the new prisoner who I will be visiting from now on. His family were originally from Kenya, and his joy was overwhelming when Rachel started talking to him in Swahili. He and another Kenyan friend of his were warmly shaking our hands with cries of "Asante sana, Asante sana." At that same carol service, there were some members of the Christian charity called Prison Fellowship. This is an organization which seeks, through prayer and practical care, to help, support, and develop a Christian ministry to people in prison and their families. Now, every year, around 200,000 children are affected by parental imprisonment, more than double the number who are impacted by divorce. At Christmas, the sense of devastation caused by parental absence is acute. And this is where Prison Fellowship steps in with a program called Angel Tree. It's a scheme that gives parents in prison the opportunity to send a Christmas present to their children. And in 2024, they sent out 4,467 gifts. This is a lovely quote from a father in prison. "I can't tell you in words how much my kids are happy. I can only say from my heart, you didn't send gifts, you sent happiness and smiles." Prison Fellowship also operates a scheme called Letterlink. People in prison often feel extremely lonely and isolated, and many have lost touch with family and friends on the outside. Here's another quote from someone who was the receiving end of one of these Letterlink schemes. "My volunteer has been there for me through some tough times. When I was down and thought of taking my own life, it was the letters of encouragement that kept me strong. There needs to be more people like this in the world." At this point, I'm going to pause and invite you to spend a few minutes reflecting on all that I've been talking about so far and thinking about some of these questions. When you've had a time to think about it a bit, maybe you'd like to engage with the person sat next to you and talk about some of the issues raised in groups of 2 or 3. And hopefully when you came in, you should have received a little sticky note and a pen. And if you haven't got one, our welcomers will bring one round. Just put your hand up. And we'll have a little bit of time of discussion. And then at the end of that time, if you want to write something on that sticky note, it could be a reflection, a prayer, or a point of action maybe for us as individuals or as a church, please write it on the note and bring it up, and we'll put it on a big sheet of paper. Thank you. Sounds like you're having some good and useful conversations. Sadly, I think we'll have to draw those to a close. And if you haven't managed to write anything, maybe you could add it to our page later on after the service. During Advent, we are called to use our prophetic voice to make a difference in the world. Through faith in action, through love in action, we can, in our own small way, through acts of human kindness and compassion, make a tangible difference to the lives of those in need. As a final thought, I'm going to bring us back to the gospel reading we heard last week of the parable of the sheep and the goats from Matthew 25. It seems to me to offer the perfect summary of all that we have been exploring over the course of the last 4 weeks. And many thanks to Sarah and to Tim and to Ian for all that they have shared in their talks. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. Then the King will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was ill, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Amen.
You can see church is all beautifully decorated already. People were even away yesterday. Everything was all set. And tonight the candles will be lit. All the lights will be twinkling. At 7 o'clock for our carols by candlelight. So do please come on to that. We're expecting it to be very busy. So come early. Or you can watch at home. It will be live streamed if you want to be able to watch in your own home. So that's 7 o'clock tonight. And then on Christmas Eve at 4 o'clock, we will be outside. There will be costumes to wear shepherds and men and angels and kings, and have lots of wine and be hot drinks. So we'll simply tell the story and sing some carols, and then send people on their way ready for their Christmas celebrations. So if you've got grandchildren around or know families around you, please invite them. It's great. I think we've had about 350 in the last couple of years, so please do invite people. And then at 11:30 on Christmas Eve night, we'll have our first communion for Christmas, and then we're here again at 10 o'clock on Christmas morning. So I know some of you will be away, some of you will have family that will stop you coming, but do come whenever you have the chance, as we welcome Christ into our world. Next Sunday, there'll be service at 10 o'clock, and Rosie Harper is going to come and lead this, and with our family. And then it'll be back to 9 and 10:45 on the floor. That's a long way. So So if you have more mince pies today, ready for tonight, if they can be put into the kitchen, or if you're coming later and are able to bring some, we'll be very grateful for that. So.
Lord, teach us how to sit and listen where walls are high and hope feels thin. In lonely places, stay beside us. Let mercy quietly begin. What we offer in simple presence, we now offer unto you.